What happens when a legendary music icon sits down for what should be a simple chat, only to face an onslaught of disrespect that leaves the entire studio speechless? In just 27 seconds of one cutting remark, a beloved host would reveal her true colors and trigger one of the most shocking walkouts in daytime television history. The stage was set like any other Wednesday afternoon. The Loose Women panel sat ready, cameras rolling, audience settled into their seats. Petula Clark, the voice behind timeless classics, had agreed to appear on the show to discuss her incredible career, spanning over 7 decades. This was meant to be a celebration, a chance for fans to hear stories from one of Britain's most treasured performers. But from the moment Petula walked onto that stage, something felt different. Denise Welch sat in the center position, flanked by fellow panelists Jane Moore, Kay Adams, and Nadia Sawalha. The applause was warm as Petula made her entrance, waving graciously to the audience, her smile genuine and bright. She took her seat on the guest sofa, smoothing down her elegant outfit, completely unaware of what was about to unfold. "Well, well, well," Denise began, not with the usual welcoming tone, but with something that felt oddly sharp. "Petula Clark, everyone. Still going, are we?" The audience laughed nervously. Petula's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before she recovered. "Yes, still very much going," Petula replied warmly. "Music has always been my passion, and I feel blessed to still be able to perform." Kay Adams jumped in quickly, sensing the odd energy. "Petula, your career is absolutely remarkable. Downtown is still played everywhere. How does it feel knowing you created something so timeless?" Petula's face lit up. "Oh, it's wonderful. You know, when we recorded that song, I never imagined it would resonate with so many people for so long. It was just something we felt in the moment, and somehow it captured something universal." "Downtown," Denise interrupted, her voice dripping with something that wasn't quite respect. "That's the one song everyone knows you for, isn't it? Must be exhausting singing the same thing over and over for, 60 years? The studio went quiet. Jane Moore's eyes widened. Nadia Sawalha shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Petula maintained her composure, though her smile had become more fixed. "Well, I've actually had quite a few hits over the years. Downtown is certainly special, but there have been many others. Don't Sleep in the Subway, I Know a Place, My Love." "Right, right," Denise waved her hand dismissively. "But let's be honest. Without Downtown, would anyone remember you?" The audience gasped audibly. This wasn't playful banter. This was something else entirely. Jane Moore tried to intervene. "Denise, I think what's incredible is that Petula has maintained such a successful career across so many decades. That takes real talent and dedication." "Does it, though?" Denise leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Or does it just take one lucky song and then riding that wave forever?" Petula's expression changed. The gracious smile disappeared, replaced by something steelier. "I'm sorry, but I don't think you understand what it takes to sustain a career in this industry. It's not about luck. It's about hard work, resilience, and genuine love for your craft." "Oh, here we go," Denise rolled her eyes dramatically. The back in my day speech. "Tell me, Petula, when was the last time you had a hit that actually mattered?" Kay Adams jumped in, her voice firm. "Denise, that's really not appropriate. Petula is a guest on our show." "I'm just asking the questions everyone's thinking," Denise shot back. "We bring these legacy acts on, and we all have to sit here and pretend they're still relevant. When do we get to be honest?" Nadia Sawalha looked horrified. "Nobody's pretending anything. Petula's contributions to music are incredible and absolutely still relevant." "To who?" Denise challenged. "Your grandmother?" The audience began murmuring, clearly uncomfortable. Petula sat very still, her hands folded in her lap, processing what was happening. "I came here today," Petula began, her voice steady but cold, "because I was told this would be a respectful conversation about my career and my experiences. I've been in this industry since I was 9 years old. I've performed for royalty. I've topped charts around the world. I've acted in films. I've done theater. I've earned my place." "Earned your place," Denise repeated mockingly. "That's a bit self-important, isn't it?" Jane Moore stood up slightly from her seat. "Denise, stop. This is completely out of line." "Sit down, Jane," Denise snapped. "I'm conducting an interview here." "An interview?" Petula's voice rose slightly, the first crack in her composure. "Is that what you call this? This feels more like an ambush." "Oh, please," Denise laughed, but it was harsh, without warmth. "You celebrities are all the same. You want everyone to bow down and worship you, but the minute someone asks a real question, you fall apart." Kay Adams tried again. "Denise, as your colleague and friend, I'm asking you to stop this right now. This isn't what we do on this show." "Maybe it should be," Denise turned to face Kay directly. "Maybe we should stop treating these has-beens like they're still important." The word hung in the air like poison. Has-beens. Petula's face went pale, then flushed with anger. "I beg your pardon?" "You heard me," Denise said, turning back to face her guest. "You had your moment decades ago. Why are you still clinging to it? Why not just retire gracefully and let the rest of us move on?" Nadia Sawalha stood up completely now. "Denise, I don't know what's gotten into you today, but this needs to stop immediately." The producer's voice could be heard off camera, calling for a commercial break, but Denise ignored it. "What's gotten into me?" Denise's voice grew louder. "I'm tired of pretending. We wheel out these ancient performers and act like we care about their stories. Downtown was a lifetime ago. The world has moved on. Why haven't you?" Petula stood up slowly, her movements deliberate and controlled. Every eye in the studio was on her. The audience had gone completely silent, watching this catastrophe unfold in real time. "I have never," Petula said, her voice shaking now with barely controlled fury, "in my entire career, been spoken to with such blatant disrespect. I have performed for presidents and prime ministers. I have sold millions of records. I have dedicated my entire life to my art, and I will not sit here and be insulted by someone who clearly has no appreciation for the history of the industry she works in." "Oh, here comes the dramatic exit," Denise said, smirking. "How predictable." Jane Moore reached out toward Petula. "Please, Petula, don't let her drive you away. This isn't who we are." "Isn't it?" Petula looked at Jane, then at Kay and Nadia. "Because she seems very comfortable behaving this way on your show, in front of your audience, with your cameras rolling." Kay Adams stood as well. "Petula, I am so sorry. This is completely unacceptable." "Sorry doesn't change what's happened here," Petula said quietly. She removed her microphone, the small gesture somehow more powerful than any shouting could have been. "I was excited to be here today. I had stories to share, memories that I thought your viewers might enjoy. But instead, I've been made to feel small and irrelevant by someone who should know better." "Please," Nadia pleaded. "We can start over. We can have a proper conversation." Petula shook her head. "No, I don't think so. Some things, once said, cannot be unsaid." Denise leaned back in her chair, arms still crossed, looking almost pleased with herself. "Well, that's show business, darling. Can't handle the heat. Get out of the kitchen." Petula turned to look at Denise one final time. "The heat? This isn't heat. This is cruelty, masquerading as honesty. There's a difference between asking difficult questions and being deliberately unkind. You should learn it." "Are you quite finished?" Denise asked, examining her nails. "Yes," Petula said simply. "I am." She turned and began walking toward the exit. The audience watched in stunned silence. You could hear her footsteps on the studio floor, each step echoing in the quiet. Jane Moore called after her. "Petula, please." But Petula didn't stop. She didn't turn around. She walked with her head held high, her dignity intact despite everything that had just transpired. As she reached the edge of the stage, Denise called out, "Don't forget to sing downtown on your way out." The audience erupted, not in laughter, but in anger. Boos filled the studio. People were shouting at Denise, telling her she'd gone too far. Kay Adams rounded on Denise, her face flushed with anger. "What is wrong with you? How could you do that to her?" "Do what?" Denise seemed genuinely confused by the reaction. "I was just being honest." "Honest?" Nadia Sawalha's voice was shaking. "You were being cruel. There's a massive difference." Jane Moore had tears in her eyes. "That woman is a legend, an absolute legend, and you just humiliated her on national television." "Oh, come off it," Denise said. "She's not that important." "Not that important." Kay's voice rose to a shout. "She sold over 68 million records. She's charted in every decade, from the 50s onwards. She's a 2-time Grammy winner. She has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But sure, Denise, tell us more about how she's not important." The producer was now on stage, trying to manage the situation. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every moment of the panel falling apart. "We need to go to commercial," the producer said urgently. "We needed to go to commercial 10 minutes ago," Jane snapped, "before this whole disaster happened." Denise finally seemed to realize the magnitude of what had occurred. "It was just a joke," she said weakly. "Can't anyone take a joke anymore?" "A joke?" Nadia looked at her incredulously. "You called her a has-been. You told her to retire. You mocked her entire career. Where's the joke in any of that?" "I was just trying to make good television," Denise protested. "Good television?" Kay was pacing now. "You just drove off one of the most beloved performers in British history. You humiliated her. You disrespected her. And for what? Ratings?" The audience was still making noise, many of them standing, some walking out themselves in solidarity with Petula. The energy in the studio had turned completely hostile. "Everyone's being so sensitive," Denise muttered. "Sensitive?" Jane's voice was ice cold. "Petula Clark has been performing since before any of us were born. She's earned respect. She's earned courtesy, and you treated her like she was nothing." Backstage, Petula was already gathering her things. A makeup artist approached her tentatively. "Miss Clark, is there anything I can get you?" Petula shook her head, her hands trembling slightly as she picked up her bag. "No, thank you. I just want to leave." "I'm so sorry about what happened out there," the makeup artist said. "We all are. That was awful." "It was," Petula agreed quietly. "But I won't let it diminish what I know I've achieved. She can say what she wants. It doesn't change the truth." Back on stage, the panel was in chaos. The producer was in Denise's ear, clearly furious. The other panelists had moved away from her, a physical representation of their distance from her actions. "We're going to have to address this on air," Kay said to the producer. "We can't just pretend this didn't happen." "I know," the producer replied, looking exhausted. "We'll come back from commercial, and you three can handle it. Denise, you're not to speak." "You can't muzzle me," Denise said indignantly. "I'm a host of this show." "You just destroyed a guest," the producer said bluntly. "Right now, you're lucky you're still on the stage." The commercial break music played, giving everyone a brief respite from the tension. Stagehands rushed around, trying to reorganize. The audience members who remained looked shell-shocked, talking among themselves about what they'd just witnessed. Jane Moore sat down heavily in her chair, putting her head in her hands. "I can't believe that just happened. I can't believe we let that happen." "We didn't let it happen," Nadia said firmly. "We tried to stop it. Multiple times. She wouldn't listen." "We should have tried harder," Kay said miserably. "That poor woman. She came here in good faith and was torn apart." Denise sat silently now, finally seeming to understand the gravity of the situation. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she said quietly. But it did, Jane said without looking at her. And now we all have to live with it. The floor manager counted them back in. 3, 2, 1. The cameras went live again. Kay Adams looked directly into the camera, her expression serious. We need to address what just happened before the break. Our guest, the legendary Petula Clark, left the show after what can only be described as a completely unacceptable exchange. Jane Moore nodded. Petula is an icon. She deserved so much better than what occurred here today. On behalf of all of us, I want to apologize to her and to everyone watching. Nadia Sawalha added, "This is not what Loose Women is about. We pride ourselves on respectful conversation, even when we disagree. What happened today crossed every line." Denise sat between them, her mouth pressed into a thin line, clearly having been instructed not to speak. The silence from her position was deafening. The audience applauded the apologies, but the atmosphere remained heavy, uncomfortable. This wasn't the lighthearted show they'd come to see. Petula Clark's career speaks for itself, Kay continued. She needs no defense from us. Her music has touched millions of lives across generations. She is, and always will be, a true legend. Jane's voice cracked slightly as she spoke. We hope she knows that the respect and admiration we have for her is genuine, and what happened today does not reflect the values of this show or this panel. In her dressing room, Petula sat alone, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The makeup that had been carefully applied now seemed garish, inappropriate for how she felt. She reached for a tissue and began removing it, wiping away the television facade to reveal the real woman beneath. There was a soft knock at her door. "Miss Clark, your car is ready whenever you are." "Thank you," she called back. "I'll be right there." She took one last look around the dressing room, this space that should have held happy memories of a pleasant appearance, but now felt tainted. She picked up her coat and bag and walked to the door. As she opened it, she found Kay, Jane, and Nadia standing in the hallway. They looked devastated. "Petula," Kay began, her eyes red. "We are so incredibly sorry." Petula held up her hand gently. "You three have nothing to apologize for. You tried to stop it. I saw that." "We should have done more," Jane insisted. "You did what you could," Petula said kindly. "Sometimes people are determined to behave badly, and there's nothing anyone can do to prevent it." Nadia wiped at her eyes. "You were gracious far longer than anyone had a right to expect." "I've been in this business a long time," Petula said softly. "I've faced far worse than a rude talk show host. But I'm also at a point in my life where I don't have to tolerate disrespect. Not from anyone." "You absolutely shouldn't have to," Kay agreed. "You're a legend. You deserve to be treated as such." Petula smiled, and for the first time since the incident, it reached her eyes. Legends are just people who've been doing what they love for a very long time. But thank you. Your kindness means more than you know. "If you ever want to come back," Jane said hopefully, "when things are different, we would be honored to have you." "That's very sweet," Petula replied, though they all knew she wouldn't be returning. "Right now, I think I just want to go home." They hugged her, each of them in turn, and watched as she walked down the corridor toward the exit. Her posture was straight, her head high. Whatever had happened in that studio, she was leaving with her dignity intact. Back on the stage, the show limped toward its conclusion. The energy never recovered. The remaining segments felt hollow, the hosts clearly shaken by what had transpired. When the final credits rolled and the cameras stopped, the studio erupted in conversation. Crew members gathered in clusters, discussing what they'd witnessed. The audience filed out, already pulling out their phones to tell people what they'd seen. Denise Welch sat alone at the panel desk, still in her seat, as everyone else dispersed. The reality of what she'd done was finally sinking in. She'd humiliated a beloved icon, alienated her co-hosts, horrified the audience, and created what would undoubtedly become one of the most notorious moments in the show's history. And for what? A few minutes of conflict? The illusion of being edgy or honest? Jane Moore packed up her notes without looking in Denise's direction. Kay Adams did the same. Nadia Sawalha checked her phone, her face drawn and tired. The producer approached the desk. "We need to have a serious conversation," he said to Denise. "My office. Now." As Denise stood and followed him, the weight of the afternoon pressed down on everyone who remained. This was supposed to have been a celebration of a remarkable career. Instead, it had become a masterclass in how quickly respect can be destroyed and how devastating cruelty can be, even when disguised as honesty. The studio lights dimmed one by one, leaving only the emergency lighting. The colorful set that usually symbolized warmth and conversation now seemed garish and false in the half-light. Outside, Petula Clark's car pulled away from the studio. She looked out the window at the building, then deliberately turned away, focusing instead on the road ahead. She had given that studio her time, her stories, and her graciousness. She had maintained her composure even when attacked. She had shown more class in her exit than had been shown to her during the entire interview. The streets of London passed by her window. Somewhere out there, people were listening to Downtown, or I Know a Place, or any of the dozens of songs she'd given the world. Those songs would outlast this afternoon. They would outlast the talk show, the hosts, the drama. Her legacy was secure, not because of talk show appearances, but because of the work itself. And in that moment, sitting in the back of the car, Petula Clark smiled. A real smile this time. Because she knew something that Denise Welch had failed to understand in that studio. Legends aren't made by talk shows or television appearances. They're made by the work you do, the lives you touch, and the grace with which you handle both triumph and adversity. She had been handling adversity with grace since before Denise Welch was born, and she would continue to do so long after this afternoon faded into just another story in a life full of remarkable moments.